let's talk about a horror game that has somehow become both one of the most anticipated and most doubted titles in development right now. Ill, from the indie studio Team Clout Inc. For several years now, Ill has built a reputation around one central contradiction. It looks unbelievably good. And that's exactly why so many people don't believe it's real. What we're dealing with isn't just a promising survival horror game. It's a game that's walked a very fine line between cinematic brilliance and too good to be true vaporware. In this deep dive, we're going to break down everything we currently know about Ill: its gameplay, its mechanics, its aesthetic choices, and its surprisingly tangled relationship with its own fan base. We'll explore why people think it's fake, how the developers have responded, what new gameplay footage really tells us, and what kind of horror experience this game might ultimately become. Let's rewind to when Ill first entered public consciousness. Around 2021, a handful of incredibly atmospheric, grotesquely detailed horror trailers appeared online. They featured uncanny body horror, gritty underground labs, unsettling ambient sound design, all rendered in what appeared to be real-time Unreal Engine 5 footage. The visuals were so intense and so polished that a lot of people had just one reaction: no way this is real. And to be fair, at the time that skepticism wasn't misplaced. There was no publisher, no gameplay footage, no development blog, no release timeline. Just a handful of jaw-dropping teasers and a Patreon page. The dev team behind it, Team Clout Inc., were mostly unknowns in the game dev world, but had backgrounds in horror illustration, practical effects, and short films. Their reputation came more from VFX and digital concept art than shipping playable titles. As a result, much of the online reaction was shaped by doubt. Reddit threads filled up with accusations that Ill was just a visual concept or a VFX artist's reel. Some believed it was made purely to get freelance work. Others accused it of being a scam, a horror-themed bait and switch, like what many feared the day before would become. On YouTube and Discord, discussions went further. If the devs couldn't show even 5 minutes of continuous, player-driven gameplay, then the game simply didn't exist. Fast forward to Summer Game Fest 2025. After years of silence and mounting skepticism, Ill returned to the stage. And this time, it brought gameplay. Not just a teaser, but what appeared to be real-time footage. Weapons with recoil, environments reacting to gunshots, a visible HUD, real physics systems, destructible surfaces, and some of the most gruesome creature design ever seen in a horror game. This trailer also introduced a new partner, Mundfish Powerhouse, the publishing division of the team behind Atomic Heart. That was the first major sign that Ill was more than vapor. It now had serious backing, a confirmed publishing pipeline, and resources to go beyond a concept trailer. The gameplay showed a first-person perspective, a player character carefully navigating dark, industrial corridors, heavily mutated creatures stumbling toward the camera, and violent, reactive combat that didn't feel staged. Guns could jam, weapons felt heavy, and enemies didn't just fall over. They twisted, bled, broke apart at the joints, or adapted mid-fight. The reveal didn't quiet all the skeptics, but it flipped the conversation. Now people were asking, okay, if it is real, how are they pulling this off? Let's get into the details of what Ill actually seems to be, based on available footage and developer interviews. At its core, Ill is a first-person survival horror game set in a derelict Eastern European environment, possibly a military lab or underground research facility, where something has gone horribly wrong. You play as a lone survivor caught in the aftermath of a failed experiment as the environment collapses into chaos and impossible mutations begin spreading across both organic and inorganic matter. Combat is slow, physical, and tactical. It's not run and gun, it's tense, methodical, and reactive. Every weapon appears to have weight. Shotguns visibly knock enemies back but take time to reload. Pistols can misfire, melee weapons require timing, and attacks can stagger or dismember enemies depending on angle and force. The game includes a full dismemberment system that isn't scripted. It's physics-based. That means enemies respond not just to damage, but to where and how you hit them. A shot to the arm may sever it. A blast to the head might cause partial trauma but not kill. This isn't just gore for shock value. It creates tactical opportunity. Knock out a leg to slow an enemy. Destroy their jaw to stop them from using certain abilities. And that's just one layer of the system. Enemies also react to the environment. From the footage, we see monsters tearing down weak walls or squeezing through vents. Doors can be blocked or barricaded, but enemies may break through. It creates a cat and mouse tension where you're never fully safe. Some enemies appear to mutate dynamically, growing extra limbs or protective shells depending on damage taken. This kind of enemy evolution is rare in horror games and adds unpredictability to each encounter. Of course, horror isn't just about gameplay mechanics, it's about immersion. And this is where Ill really starts to blur the line between game and cinema. Graphically, Ill is stunning. Built in Unreal Engine 5, it uses nanite geometry for high detail environments and lumen for dynamic lighting and shadows. Textures are gritty, analog, and sickeningly organic. Surfaces glisten with blood, rot, or condensation. There's a thick atmosphere in every frame, not just visual but sonic. Audio design includes spatial sounds, heavy breathing, echoing footsteps, groans from beyond walls. You'll often hear enemies before you see them, or hear something and hope it's not real. Creature design is heavily inspired by practical effects from classic horror. Think John Carpenter's The Thing or Cronenberg's The Fly. But also a lot of Soviet-era horror cinema. Dark, decaying biology, and body transformation. These aren't just enemies. They feel like living disease, constantly shifting, oozing, reacting. The sound design reinforces this. Every squelch, rupture, or distorted cry is amplified. There's no background music, only texture and dread. It's designed to make your skin crawl. Yet despite the recent gameplay reveals and the involvement of a real publisher, a cloud of doubt still lingers over Ill. Many players continue to question whether the game we're being shown is truly representative of a playable experience, or whether it's an elaborate illusion. And to be fair, their skepticism isn't entirely unfounded. One major reason for this doubt lies in how tightly controlled the footage has been. All gameplay we've seen so far has been developer-curated, brief sequences with heavy cinematic editing, dramatic lighting, and carefully choreographed monster encounters. There's still no raw, uninterrupted gameplay session available, no 12-minute walkthrough with UI, inventory, and organic player interaction that demonstrates how the systems work in real time under non-scripted conditions. That absence alone raises questions. Many fans argue that until Ill can be seen in the hands of actual players, not just developers, it's impossible to truly verify the depth and stability of its systems. Adding to this, there's the sheer ambition of what the game is trying to do. Team Clout is a small studio, and yet they're promising dynamic AI, physics-based dismemberment, reactive environments, mutation systems, inventory management, and next-gen lighting, all working together in real time. That's a monumental scope, even for larger studios. The dismemberment alone, if truly governed by physics rather than scripted animations, would be a complex and performance-heavy feature. Skeptics rightly ask, how can such a compact team deliver something this technically intricate without cutting corners? Then there's the game's developmental history. For years, Ill existed only as a Patreon-funded passion project. While there's nothing inherently wrong with that, the lack of a playable prototype, combined with the focus on concept trailers and artistic vignettes, made it feel more like a showcase of animation skills than a work-in-progress game. Some believe the developers were building a cinematic reel to attract film or VFX industry clients rather than actually building an interactive experience. And because the initial marketing leaned so heavily on visuals, without mechanics, that perception stuck. There's also a psychological factor to the doubt. The visual fidelity of Ill is so high, so grotesquely polished, that it triggers a kind of disbelief. Players are used to cinematic horror trailers that don't reflect the final product. We've seen it with Agony, Scorn, The Day Before, and countless others. That context shapes how people interpret Ill. It's not just that it looks good, it looks too good, and that alone makes people suspicious. So while Ill may well be real, and recent footage suggests it is, the doubt persists because the game has yet to prove itself in a way that removes the veil of control. Until players see unfiltered gameplay in independent hands, until a press build or a demo is made public, the question will remain in the back of everyone's mind. Is this real gameplay, or just a very convincing illusion? That said, there are also several reasons to believe Ill is genuine, and potentially groundbreaking. First, the tech shown so far is consistent. The dismemberment physics, lighting, environmental interaction, they all appear to be in real time. There are minor visual bugs and inconsistencies, which actually suggest this isn't a pre-rendered cutscene. It's gameplay, with all its rough edges intact. Second, the studio has shifted from a purely crowd-funded model to a traditional publisher-developer partnership. Munfish has the resources and infrastructure to bring the game to market. Third, the developers are talking more openly than before. In a recent PlayStation blog interview, Team Clout confirmed the presence of branching level paths, multiple weapon types, and progressive enemy evolution across encounters. These are not vague promises, they're specific system level commitments. Finally, what they've shown lines up with their goals. They're not promising a 20-hour open world epic. Ill is likely a shorter, more concentrated experience, something closer to Resident Evil 7 or Condemned, where intensity and pacing matter more than content size. So, what can we expect next? At this stage, Ill is confirmed for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. No release date has been officially announced, but based on dev communication and production status, a 2026 launch window seems plausible. An alpha test or private build may be released later in 2025 to select content creators. The next big milestone will be a full-length gameplay presentation, ideally 10, 15 minutes uncut, showing UI, resource management, puzzles, and AI in action. That's what most players are waiting for. That's the moment where Ill will either solidify its hype or collapse under its own expectations. Ill is an anomaly in today's game landscape. It came out of nowhere, showed incredible promise, and instantly triggered both awe and distrust. It's rare for a game to look this polished and this ambitious while still being developed by such a small team. But that's also what makes it exciting. Whether Ill ends up being a landmark horror title or just a fascinating footnote, it's already succeeded at one thing: making the entire gaming world stop, look, and wonder. So what do you think? Is Ill the future of indie horror, or is it still too early to tell? Drop your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to like, subscribe, and stick around for more horror deep dives. Until next time, and remember, in Ill, it's not just the world that's sick, it's you.